Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. Special State of the Union tonight. We're coming to you live immediately following the USA-Jamaica Nations League game, first leg. This show, we will be talking about the Jamaica-USA game, an instant reaction, if you will. My good friend Mosse will probably be whining about Brazil. Argentina lost, which is obviously MLS's fault. England romping in Greece, country over club, and a little bit other stuff. We'll see. We'll see what we get to. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how you doing on this Thursday night, November 14th in the year 2024? Wow, Mosse, you sound awesome. I can't hear you, so that could be a problem going forward. As long as you can hear me, here's what we're going to do. I am going to get right into the game, okay? I'm sure producer Sean will be able to fix what's going on, but I can't hear you. But I'm sure you said something incredibly droll, incredibly intelligent, incredibly incisive in terms of what you saw here. So, Sean, if you could fix that, that would be great, because I do want to hear what Mosse has to say. If he doesn't, we can certainly do this where I just babble on the entire time. Okay. We are coming to you, like we said, after the USA versus Jamaica game. When we look at this starting 11, Mosse, I'm just going to jump right into it here, okay? If we fix your audio, great. If we don't,
I've been told that we have reestablished contact.
Oh, wonderful. Okay,
and by the way, all I had said was I had let the audience know that you were in Miami for a conference.
Okay. I am in here for the Soccer X last night of it. It's been wonderful. It's been really fun, actually, to hang out here in Miami and see a bunch of different people. We did a little 94 reunion panel, myself and Eric Ronaldo, and some different things here. But I will be back in Los Angeles tomorrow. Okay, so let's get to it, Mosse. Shall we light this candle?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Lineup-wise, when this lineup came out before the USA-Jamaica game from Mauricio Pochettino in his first, competitive game, because this is Nations League, I don't think it raised a lot of eyebrows. There were plenty of usual suspects. I do think that there was a question before the game started as to how they would line up with the personnel. Matt Turner in goal, Joe Scally on the right, Jedi Robinson on the left, center back tandem of Tim Ream and Mark McKenzie. And then in the midfield, Weston McKennie, Tanner Tessman, and Johnny Cardoso. Three players up top, at least on the lineup. Christian Pulisic on the left, Yunus Musa on the right. Ricardo Pepi gets the start up in that striker position. Again, I don't think that everybody looked at this and said, "Wow, this is incredible." If Tyler Adams were here, he certainly would be, I think, in the midfield. And if Tim Weah were here, I certainly think that he would play. Gio Reyna, who knows where he fits in going forward, but certainly a strong lineup, certainly enough to take on the likes of Jamaica, albeit in Jamaica. When I looked at this, Mosse, there was a question at the beginning as to whether this was going to be a back four or a back three. Certainly, at times, Jedi Robinson on that left-hand side, as we've seen him in the past, was pushed way up, so it kind of did become a back three. But I think it was oftentimes a back four. I will say that as Jedi Robinson on the left-hand side got pushed up, it did produce a problem that I think a lot of people are talking about, and that is whether Tim Ream, when he gets strung out, either in space or with somebody that is faster than him, is it problematic when they do kind of fall into that three in the back? I will say this: while Matt Turner saved a penalty tonight, I do think that there is still questions about what Matt Turner is in this version of him in 2024 and going forward, and I do think that there is competition at the goalkeeper position. I don't think that Mark McKenzie is good enough. I think he is adequate, but we don't need adequate in order to do great things in 2026. The same can be said, I think, for Joe Scally. I think Tim Ream, the problem is that when he gets strung out, when it is one-on-one, when it is a speed factor, it is scary to me. And against Jamaica, at times, he got exposed, but against better teams, I think it could be problematic. Mosse, before we get into the midfield, initial thoughts on the lineup?
Yeah, as you mentioned, at times it played like a back three, at times it played like a back four, but either way, Musa was playing down that right flank. So that's clearly where Pochettino sees him right now, which I find interesting. I do like the freedom he's giving Pulisic to drift into the middle of the field. He's finding a lot of space there, including for the goal today. Um, and then obviously, Pepi making the most of his start up top. But I guess I've skipped ahead to the midfield and attack, and you wanted me to just focus on defense, right?
Well, anything from a defensive standpoint other than the possible 3 or back 4 and the good and the bad that comes with that.
No, I thought Matt Turner had a good night. Not only the penalty save, but also incredible save to deny an Olympico in the second half.
Yep.
I do think Jamaica should have had another penalty in that sequence. I do think Tim Ream blocked it with his arm. The U.S. got a bit of a break there.
I
But
mean, that was like your proverbial chicken wing, right? I mean, that thing,
right.
he even almost exaggerated it. I was like, Tim, don't do it. Don't draw attention to it. He kind of lifted up his arm. And yeah, it was borderline in terms of where the where the handball would be or wouldn't be, but it would not have surprised me in the least if that had actually been called a handball. So I think I got away with something. You mentioned UNIS Moose as we get into the midfield and into the attack. I don't care how much Pochettino or anybody else out there believes that Yunus Musa is a winger. You cannot convince me that Yunus Musa is best served on the U.S. men's national team playing out there on the wing. At times he looks completely lost. I don't think that he has the speed and the quickness to consistently cause problems out there on the right side. I did like the way that Christian Pulisic drifted in at times in that, quasi 10 position, and obviously it resulted in the goal. And Ricardo Pepi, I thought he was good, not great. He didn't take his goal well, but you know what? They don't ask how, they only ask how many, and he got his chance and he scored a goal. But, he topped it, but it still went in. I actually thought that Weston McKennie was the best of the front, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that were up there. I thought he was just smooth. I thought he was confident, and I thought he was vital in terms of the performance tonight.
And what was interesting about that was at the outset, it looked like McKinney was going to be playing further up the field with Tessman and Johnny Cardoso sitting. And then Johnny got hurt, and Pochettino brought on Malik Tillman to replace him, which meant Weston had to assume greater defensive responsibilities. And I agree with you. He did a very good job.
Christian Pulisic, right now playing at the top of his game. We have the debate and the fun type of talk about where he sits in the pecking order of great players, not just great American players, not just great players in Italy, but where he sits right now. He was obviously targeted. Anybody that plays the U.S. with a Christian Pulisic on the field is going to be wary of what he can do. Not a game that we're going to put up there in terms of top 5 that he has played, but his movement I thought was good. And as I mentioned on the goal, him coming inside, dipping the shoulder, getting the space, and then more importantly, playing that ball. I did think in the first, 10 minutes of the game, the U.S. had a lot of possession. They didn't necessarily go anywhere, but there was a lot of possession. I know on my feed over here on the X machine, there were a lot of people that were commenting on the state of the field that they played on. Yeah, it wasn't great, and even within the bad conditions of the field, I thought it was really good in the way that the U.S. maintained possession, in the way that they didn't panic. Sometimes it was risky, but I think that there was a confidence in the way that they played the ball around, especially in that first 10 minutes, and it kind of set the tone for this game.
Yeah, and in addition to the Pepe goal, you had a great chance with Anthony Robinson in the box, and it did look in the opening minutes like this was going to be a wide open game, and the U.S. was going to have a lot of space and was going to be able to create chances. And then the penalty Jamaica got, even though they missed it, Matt Turner saving from Damari Gray, that signaled a momentum shift in the game. And I thought from that point forward, Jamaica was on the front foot. The U.S. was kind of holding on, and it ended up being almost kind of a smash and grabby, ugly win at the end. Which was interesting the way the game started, because you kind of thought it might be heading a different direction.
Yeah, and in that penalty that ultimately Matt Turner saved, and to your point, it was a really good save. I thought that was one where I thought it was a good penalty. I mean, I guess a good penalty is one that goes in. So in that sense, it wasn't a good penalty, but I thought he struck it well, and I thought that Matt Turner was really quick off his line, fairly off his line, and made a really good save. So well done to Matt Turner. And I think Matt Turner kind of needed that moment for his confidence, because I'm certainly feels that there is competition with what's going on, and the fact that he's not playing over in Europe. And while he isn't the incumbent, there are other folks out there. The Tim Ream situation. I mean, if we could just bottle Tim Ream's ability on the ball with the physical prowess of a Richards, who we didn't see tonight, or somebody else out there, then you would have the perfect player. But you can never have the perfect player. He got spun like a top on the top of the box that ultimately resulted in the penalty. And look, Richards or McKenzie or any center back, certainly that could happen to him. But again, these moments when he gets strung out, when there's space, it's I think it lends to the conversation that we're having as to, can Tim Ream be a starter relative to 26? And if you don't believe that, then why are we wasting time with him at this point?
Yeah, that was Shamar Nicholson who spun him. Jamaica have some players, Leon Bailey, DeMar Gray,
Yep.
as I mentioned. They're now managed by Steve McLaren, former England boss, which is interesting. So I'm curious to see where the reggae boys go the rest of the cycle. But I want to ask you about this because I was grappling with this all game long. We know ultimately what matters is the World Cup. But
Mm-hmm.
to what degree are we judging every match until then through that lens? Or are we judging it in the context of the competition the U.S. is in? Because a 1-0 result away from home in a first leg and a two-legged tie is a good result, and the U.S. is now well positioned to advance to the Nations League Final Four. But are you viewing it through that mindset, or do you think Pochettino should be treating these games almost as friendlies in terms of wanting to get a look at different players and different formations and not worrying so much about the game situation? Are you okay with the U.S. bunkering down in the last few minutes of that game to try to hold on to that result? Or no, at this point, almost every game between now and the World Cup should be viewed through the context of preparing for the World Cup?
Mosse, barring Pochettino going on a coast-to-coast killing spree, there is not a chance in hell that he is going to get fired before the 26 World Cup. That is, and I don't say this in a flip way, that is all that matters. That is going to be his legacy. And let's be honest, that is why he was hired. Now, those of us, whether it's you and I, fans, everybody out there looking at this team, we are going to criticize and critique and judge him relative to the games leading up. But ultimately, I want the best possible version of this team in the summer of 2026. I don't want it in the summer of 24. I don't want it in the summer of 25. And I know we have Gold Cup, and those are important. But to your point, I am only looking at it relative to 2026. And so when I see them play a team like Jamaica, who at times has given us trouble, but when I see them play a team like Jamaica and get a road result in a difficult environment, yes, I pat them on the back, but not too much because it's still Jamaica. And ultimately, Pochettino has been brought in to do things that we haven't done before. And I didn't see anything tonight that leads me to believe that this is a team that is any different. Had this performance happened under Greg Berhalter, I don't think anybody would have said that it looks any different. This is what this team is. Now, excuse me, it might change as we go forward. But right now, looking at this team, I'm glad they got the result because I think that's important to recognize that, you know what, you can be ruthless. And I don't think they were as ruthless as they needed to be tonight, but ultimately they held on for the win. But it's still not at a point where I'm looking at this team and saying, oh my God, you are going to do things in 2026 that we have not seen before.
Yeah, I'm just curious, late in this game, as Pochettino started making subs, was that strategic to try to get a result in this game, or is he still in this mode of just wanting to get a look at different players? So I just wonder how he's approaching it.
I think he recognizes that he has a very long leash. I also think he recognizes the priority of the World Cup. And it's not that he doesn't want to win. And that's why, for example, the Tim Ream question, would we better be served by having somebody else get those minutes? I don't know. Excuse me, I'm having a frog in my throat here. I'm at the one of the casinos here, Mosse,
Yeah.
and they smoke here. There's smoking all over the place. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else? Anything else on this game, Mosse?
No. So leg two now is Monday in St. Louis. The U.S. In good shape to advance. They're chasing a fourth straight CONCACAF Nations League title. We know the Final Four is at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles next year, so we hope they're in it. But yeah, I assume you now fully expect the U.S. to go on to advance.
Yeah, I do, and that will mark the return of Tim Weah too. So we'll see how he fits into the equation here. Obviously, with Johnny coming out and Malik coming in, there could be some changes here or there. But if you're Jamaica, it's still plenty to play for. But I would still expect the U.S. to come back and have a much more dominant performance in the second game. I would obviously like them to score more goals. Before we leave, though, we've talked a lot over the last months about Pepi and the super sub status that he has occupied. And, he got his opportunity here. Josh Sargent is hurt. Balogun is hurt. And I think he took it, even though he didn't take his goal well. He still finished it, and I think there was some question as to can he only come into a game and affect it in a substitute role. Well, I think he kind of put that to bed, but I did like the way that he held the ball up. I did like the way that he came back and provided an option up top. And I'm not saying that a Balogun or a Sargent couldn't do that, but he was more involved than I thought he was going to be. And ultimately, the most important thing for a striker is scoring goals. And even if they're ugly, you will still take that. And so I think all in all, a good performance from Pepi, which makes me feel better if and when he is given the start that he can do good things as opposed to just coming off the bench in that substitute role.
And did you see, he said he hates being called a super sub. And there are all sorts of rumors about his club future. Fabrizio Romano posting about it. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to stick around PSV much longer in this role. He wants to go somewhere where he can start.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, Mosse, what do you want to go to now? Because I know you're itching to talk about your Brazil, and there was obviously games happening all across the world and some really interesting results.
Yeah, first up in terms of the CONCACAF Nations League, Costa Rica and Panama 0-0 right now in the second half in the first leg of that tie. And then tomorrow, Suriname, Canada, and Honduras, Mexico. So those are the other matchups we have to look forward to. I worked the game earlier today in the UEFA Nations League. Greece hosted England in League B. England came away with a 3-0 win. Ollie Watkins, an own goal, and Curtis Jones supplying the scoring. So England now in the driver's seat to finish first in that group and earn automatic promotion back to League A, which, as we talked about in our last pod, would be good news for Thomas Tuchel because he wants nothing to do with the Nations League. He wants to be able to start next year already focusing on World Cup qualifying.
Hey, I tell you what, if you're Tuchel, you might have wanted to be on the bench for this one because they were awesome right off the bat. We watched this one in the sports book here, and it was one-way traffic for a long time. Greece is still a good team, but England finished their chances, and to go to Athens and to get that result, and a commanding type of performance, especially missing all those players, says a lot about the depth of this team and obviously the quality of this team.
In League A, France and Israel played to a 0-0 draw, while Italy won 1-0 away to Belgium. Sandro Tonali with the goal there. Italy and France advanced to the quarterfinals today, joining Germany and Spain, who are the other two that are already clinched. So it's shaping up to be a tasty quarterfinal field next year. Portugal play Poland tomorrow and then Croatia on Monday. Cristiano Ronaldo had some very interesting quotes about Portugal players pulling out. Harry Kane said something similar about England. I know that's going to be your one for the road, so we're going to revisit that today.
Yep.
And then you mentioned it. We had some CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. Venezuela and Brazil today played to a 1-1 draw. Rafinha with a free kick late in the first half. Segovia with an equalizer early in the second half. Vinicius Jr. missed a penalty in the second half. I thought Brazil had turned the corner after winning both matches in October, but this was a step back. Very disappointing. The thought of Fran Arthur being happy sickens me.
So what do you chalk this one up to? Because like you said, you thought that they were heading back in a good direction, and then they lay an egg here. What do you think the problem was?
Well, Vinicius is interesting because we pretty much know it was his form with Brazil which cost him the Ballon d'Or. I mean, all the voters that didn't put him first have come out and said it was because of the Copa America. So as good as he is with Real Madrid, he has to get this Brazil thing sorted. And he actually played a very good first half today. Super active, much better than he's played in recent Brazil games. And so there was a feeling that, okay, this is finally starting to look the way it should. And Brazil was up 1-0 at the half. And then, okay, they give up the equalizer seconds into the second half. But then Vinicius earns the penalty. Rafinha grabs the ball first. It looked like he was going to take it, but then Vinicius walked over and asked for it. And so this was kind of a fork in the road moment of Vinicius buries that penalty, and you think, okay, finally he sort of turned the corner here with Brazil. But what happens? It was an awfully taken penalty, saved. And so now everybody's back to scratching their heads about Vinicius with Brazil. And by the way, that destroyed him the rest of the match. Mentally, he was done. He was awful the remainder of the game.
He's forcing it. He's forcing it. And when it comes to some of these players that you want to be the leader, there's obviously different definitions of what a leader is, and they can both be as impactful, but they can be very, very different versions. I think he's trying at times to be something that maybe Brazil wants him to be relative to previous Brazilians or even relative to previous great players. But I'm not sure that he wants or needs to be that in order to be great, in order for Brazil to be great going forward. So I don't know. We'll see if he matures in terms of his leadership.
The other very interesting result in South America today, Argentina lost 2-1 away to Paraguay. They took the lead through Lautaro Martinez, but then Sanabria equalized with an incredible bicycle kick goal, and then Alderete scored the winner for Paraguay early in the second half. So a bad few days here for Messi, with Inter Miami getting knocked out of the MLS playoffs and Argentina losing this one.
Well, it's obviously MLS's fault here. Okay, we've completely ruined Messi for for Argentina, and I'm sure that the folks down at Inter Miami and Don Garber over there will take full responsibility for what is happening there. Again, Mosse, some context and perspective is in order in terms of relative to qualifying for 2026. All of these teams are going to qualify. As a matter of fact, there's even more spots this year, but relative to possibly winning, and in Messi's case, defending the World Cup, this is what's concerning as we get now 18 months away from the World Cup. I don't think that this is a problem necessary for Argentina or a huge red flag, but it's not often that you see Argentina losing. And hats off to Paraguay. Hell, hats off to the Vino Tinto. And it's not as if they are coming out of nowhere. We have talked about the rise of Venezuela and what they are, and I guess the demise, if you will, of your Brazil. So these results, while they look shocking on paper, they're not as ridiculous as we might make it seem.
Argentina do have a very easy game next, home to Peru. That should be 3 points. Brazil hosts Uruguay on Tuesday, which is a massive game. Uruguay home to Colombia tomorrow, and then away to Brazil on Tuesday. So it's a big window for Bielsa and company. So that's the situation in South America.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to say about the games that you saw today or soccer that you were watching today?
No, but can I ask you? You mentioned in passing Eric Ronaldo, and I have some
Sure.
moles at the conference that you're at, and so I was sent a picture today of you on a panel with Eric Ronaldo and our old pal Jason Wormser, an executive that used to work at Fox. What was that about?
So they wanted to do a panel about 1994. It seems like yesterday, but it's actually now 30 plus years ago. And I'll be honest, I think we talked about this on the pod a few months ago. It was kind of, I don't want to cry about it and I'm not doing that, but it was kind of a little disappointing in that even ourselves, we didn't make more of a celebration of it. And I know in 26 there will be certainly look backs as to what 94 was and certainly what that team was. But this was just Eric and myself coming in here to Miami and being involved in a panel and really a look back. And a lot of it was to kind of show the reality and to provide a little perspective on how far we have come. As the saying goes, you've come a long way, baby, and we certainly have as a soccer playing nation. And to hear Eric, and sometimes people forget, while I'm lumped in with that generation, Eric and a group of players that were involved in 94 played in 1990, and I was in the stands watching, not even knowing that 4 years later I would be there in the World Cup. So it was fun to get to hear his stories. Some of them were true, I assume. but it was fun to hang out with him. It's always fun, and he's an interesting cat. And we shared some wonderful stories and had shared some wonderful times 30 plus years ago. So that's what we did. All right, Mosse, should we get on to my one for the road here?
Well, yeah, because you just mentioned that guys like you and Eric had so much pride in representing your country, so I'm sure you found it very interesting some of the stuff that Ronaldo and Kane said in recent days.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you really have to be careful as you get older, not just as a player, as a person, from coming off to grumpy old man. In this case, whether it's Kane or Ronaldo, and I do feel that the further you get in your career and the older you get, maybe the more appreciation you have, and a lot of it is relative to maybe you've already had glory. Maybe you've made a lot of money. Maybe you've become very famous. Maybe you've have achieved those goals that you set out to achieve. And so maybe you have a better perspective on things. And so I was interested this last couple of days to hear, these incredible stars, these legendary stars relative to their national team lament the fact that, this generation that is coming out, they don't see with the same type of heart. Now, who knows? Again, this could be a passage of time and them, um, reimagining what the past was. But I do think that, it's, I do think that it's important to understand what it means to represent a national team. And I guess, Mosse, let's listen to some of the quotes. I know you have them in front of you, so I read some of the quotes so people get an idea of what they were talking about.
So just to give some context here, a lot of Portuguese players pulled out of this camp, and so Ronaldo said, "I get frustrated with some players who don't want to play for Portugal. Enjoy playing for the national team. Time flies. There's nothing better than representing your country and your culture." Similarly, England had 9 players pull out of their squad ahead of these Nations League games against Greece and Ireland in this window. Harry Kane was not having it. He said, among other things, he said, "England comes before club. England is the most important." Obviously, I think it's a tough period of the season, and maybe that's been taken advantage of a little bit. I don't really like it, if I'm being honest. Like I said, England comes before anything.
Yeah, and I know that taps into an emotion and a passion and a heart and I guess a sense of nationalism that I think uh, has a home and I think has a place. And to hear these players talk about that, I I tend to agree in that, a lot of times we'll talk about in the context of dual nationals. But, the reality is that it's just about being a national team player. You have to, at some point, after all the X's and O's and the wins and the losses and, the fame or fortune that comes from playing for your national team, after you put that aside, there has to be something innate. There has to be something inside you that you feel something to play for this. And I think it's different. I think it's vastly different than the feeling that you have for a club. And I'm not saying that you can't be emotional and passionate and connected to a club. We see plenty of players that forever are associated and linked to their club, and they're incredibly passionate about it. But I think it's a whole nother level and a very different type of commitment and connection when it comes to playing for your country. And I am 54 years old right now. And if Pochettino at some point turned around and looked up in the stands and I was in the stands and said, "Hey, can you come give me 20 minutes?" I would do anything, even with my metallic knee. I would give anything to be able to do it. Not because of the winning, not because of the goals, not because of the like I said, the actual running around, but what that running around represents. And it represents your association and your connection. And what it hopefully represents is your love and your honor and your tribute and your respect for your country and the people of your country. And we're incredibly fortunate to be able to do that. However, when someone like Ronaldo or Kane say this, they can tend to look like they are grumpy old manning about this young generation. But I do think that it resonates, and I do think that it bears repeating. And sometimes you need, for lack of a better word, older players or older folks to remind you of how good you have it, of what you have in the palm of your hand, and not to waste it and never to take it for granted. And I think that's what they were doing. And I think it can be welcome. And while the younger players may grumble, be careful because not too long you will be that old player. And if you do take it for granted, you might not be around like Kane and Ronaldo to be able to say that because you might not be on the team anymore. So I do think that it was interesting to hear it, and I'm glad that they said it because in this day and age where I do think it's kind of going in a different direction when it comes to the national team, it would I would be sad if that happened because I don't think there's anything better than representing your country. As great as the club success may be, there's nothing like putting your hand over your heart and hearing that song play and singing with not just your players, but singing with your country in a stadium and then going on the field and representing that country. It is awesome, and I wish I could do it again, but that I did it once was pretty cool. Mosse, anything before we go, my friend?
Well, Americans will get a chance to represent their country again on Monday when the U.S. hosts Jamaica in St. Louis in the second leg of this tie. And we will do this again on Monday. We're going to do a post-game pod, but this time with Stu Holden as a special guest, breaking down the second leg between the U.S. and Jamaica. If we talk TV shows on that pod, I'm going to have two new ones to discuss: The Day of the Jackal and Say Nothing, which both came out today. I'm going to watch them this weekend. If you'll indulge me, can I spend a minute on My Brilliant Friend? Because I promised people on X I would do that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This past Monday night was the final episode ever of what I say is one of, if not the best television show I've ever seen in my life. For people that haven't watched it, you should. It's 4 seasons. This Italian writer, Elena Ferranti, wrote a series of novels, and then they made a TV show based on the novels. It's this coming-of-age story of these two Italian girls, Elena Greco and Raffaella Cerullo, growing up in Naples in 1950s, post-World War II, and then it takes it all the way up to the 80s as they get older and get married and have kids and all the rest. It is so well done. It takes me to places emotionally that I don't think any other show has ever taken me. I know your wife loves it, and if she's caught up, I'd love to text with her about it because I have so many thoughts. But yeah, I'm very sad this show is no longer in my life. I give it a 10 out of 10. Like I said, one of the best TV shows ever made.
Yep, you give it a 10 out of 10. My wife gives it a 10 out of 10. So it's just resounding applause for this show. All right, I will do it. You've got me, and it's over, right?
It is over. It is over.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. And we're over here. So thank you for joining us here for a special live State of the Union. As Mosse said, we'll be back after the return leg, the USA Jamaica game, to do another live show. So please join us then. It'll be fun, and we'll see if Pochettino and company can improve on the goal scoring, but obviously continue with the winning. So 1-0 down in Jamaica for the United States. Winning is good, my friends. In my expert opinion, winning is better than losing. Take it to the bank. Keep reviewing, keep downloading, keep subscribing, keep rating, keep doing all the different things you do out there when it comes to the State of the Union. Mosse, walking around SoccerX, I cannot tell you the amount of times that people have come up to me and referenced the State of the Union. So it's resonating out there with the people. People are digging it. Keep subscribing, keep pounding on the subscribe and all that. And whether it's on YouTube or on X or on Spotify or all the different places out there. We love the fact that you are getting it in so many different ways. Audio, video, probably something else that we don't even know, and probably some social media places out there that I don't even know the name of. They just keep cropping up, Mosse. It's an amazing thing. We'll talk to you again next week. And until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.